Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. We broadcast Monday through Friday, 2 hours a day. Jason is engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. Rich Sheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. Welcome, Rich Sheben.
Well, thank you, Mr. Finelli. How are you doing this morning? And no, I didn't mention cars.
Hey, class, for weeks I would introduce Rich Sheben, and he would say, and how are you doing? And I'd say, well, since you mentioned it, and then we go into cars. Well, I want, Rich and class, I'd like to share something with you. This Friday, I'm going to be on stage in front of thousands of people at the Cowan Civic Center in Lebanon, Missouri. And I'm running for the board of directors. I want to replace an existing guy who's running for re-election. And so I sent an email to the CEO of Laclede Electric Cooperative, and I asked him a few questions. And I thought that our class would find this absolutely stunning, the answer. So I'd like to read just a few of my questions and his answers. Now, this is the CEO of this multi-million-dollar electric company. So I said, his name is Mark Rocker. I said, Mark, can you provide some answers to these questions? Number one, can you provide a copy of the salary compensation ranges for employees? Now, what I'm asking is, okay, so for a specific job, how much does that pay? Minimum to maximum range. Okay, secretary, the minimum we pay a secretary, the maximum we pay a secretary. A guy who works on the lines, power lines. A guy who cuts the lawn. The maintenance guy, the CEO, the vice president. So, can you provide a copy of the salary compensation ranges for employees? Answer: unable to provide this information. Do directors go on retreats? If so, where? Are spouses invited? And what's the cost to Laclede Electric Cooperative? That was my question. Laclede Electric Cooperative holds a board and management planning session annually at Laclede's office. Spouses are not invited. Cost is minimal. Board of directors attend training and conferences. Directors are paid a per diem plus reimbursement for modest expenses for meals and travel. Spouses may attend but do not qualify for reimbursement expenses. I'll tell you what the reimbursement is in just a minute. Next question. Do any directors use net metering for their properties? Generate solar or wind or hydropower? So what I want to know is, do any of the directors do what Vincent Finelli and his family is doing? Generate electricity and provide it back to the electric cooperative for others to use? That was my question. The answer: unable to provide this information due to policy on member privacy. Can you imagine that? Okay. What is the total compensation for board members? Well, they get insurance. They get medical insurance. 75% is paid by the cooperative. 24-hour accident, business travel insurance, life insurance, and dental insurance at 100%. I mentioned the per diem. So the amount of money that's paid to the group of directors for 2018 was $105,000. that means daily reimbursement. The president, if he attends a board meeting, gets $500 for 3 hours, plus he gets a free lunch. All other board members, all other meetings that the president goes to, he gets paid $312.50 a day. How many people get paid $312.50 a day, or $500 a day for half a day's work plus free lunch? The other members of the board, not the president, get $400 a day. And if they go to other meetings and training, they get $250 a day. Next question. What is the cost of this annual meeting, this circus, this carnival that they have at the Cowan Civic Center? Answer, approximately $65,000. That's for one night. One night. Now, here's a very, very important question. Number 6. I asked, very simply, 3 words. Who owns Laclede Electric Cooperative? It's owned by, the answer, Laclede Electric Cooperative is owned by its members, totaling 28,585 people. Laclede Electric is owned by its members. Let me say that one more way, a different way. Laclede Electric is owned by its members. So I, as an owner, asked, can you provide a copy of the salary compensation ranges for employees? The answer, unable to provide this information. I asked, do directors use net metering? That means, do they have 2 meters, one for selling and one for buying electricity? Do any directors use net metering for their properties? Do they generate solar, wind, or hydropower? Unable to provide this information due to policy on member privacy. Now, I told you that my question was, who owns Laclede Electric Cooperative? Answer, by the CEO. It's owned by the members. So as an owner, I can't find out information. Here's another one. What is the, number 7, average Laclede Electric Cooperative employee compensation? Answer, by the CEO. Unable to provide this information. I can't even find out the average compensation for the average employee. Next question, number 8. Do you, meaning do you, the CEO, vice presidents, or board members receive bonuses? Answer. The CEO has received 1 bonus in the past several years for exemplary service and results. According to policy and union contract, employees are paid a year-end holiday bonus of $100 plus $10 per year of employment. Board members do not receive bonuses. Now, if you're an employee of Laclede Electric, you get a $100 bonus. For what? A bonus is usually, hey, we had a really great year. Employee did a really great job. It's kind of an individual thing. Not everybody gets the same amount of a bonus just because. And the longer you work there, you just multiply that number of years by $10, and that you get in addition to the 100. Okay. Then I asked, what is the rate change history for the last 20 years? Okay. Well, let's see. I've got to go to okay. Now, let me go to that screen. Rate change for the last 20 years. I'm going to have to bring up a chart. I'll bring that up in a couple minutes. Number 10, why were smart meters installed? Answer, savings to the members from operating efficiencies, including automated meter readings and remote connects and disconnects. Remote connects and disconnects. That means that if you don't pay your bill, they can remotely disconnect your electricity. They don't have to send a guy. There's no face-to-face anything. There's no wife of the guy on oxygen saying, hey, my husband doesn't have a job. He's on oxygen. Please don't disconnect the electricity. He'll die if we don't have air conditioning. We can't pay you right now, but we will. They can disconnect it remotely, right from the office. They don't have to see you. But yet, at the same board of directors gives out gifts of credits toward electric bills for people because they have a birthday that matches the number of years Laclede has been in business. So if you're 70 years old and this year and Laclede has been around for 70 years, you get a $70 birthday present, which is a credit towards your electric bill. Next one. What is the total compensation package of CEO and vice presidents? Answer. Unable to provide this information due to cooperative's policy on member access to information. How long has each current board member held their positions? How long has each current board member held their positions? Lawrence, 47 years. 47 years. Cravens, 20 years. Hoffman, 15. Nutter, Bishop, and Little, 10 years. Harris, 9 years. Robbins, 7 years. And Jones, he's a newcomer. He's only been there for 3 years. How many employees? 125. The number and type and amount of Laclede Electric's legal actions in the past 5 years. I want to know how many lawsuits are, as an owner, I want to know how many lawsuits has our cooperative been in since I own the company, right? That's what he said. Unable to provide this information. Amount paid by Laclede Electric for legal services in the past 5 years. Unable to provide this information. What do you think? How do you react to that, Rich Scheben?
Well, first of all, when it comes to smart meters, smart means spy. Spy means that they sell all your information on your household and they know what you want. And we are in a situation where information has been weaponized against the people. Let me just give you one example from a macro standpoint. Report: Monsanto paid Google to bury unfavorable news. Okay, this is when you're saying, well, they're not answering questions or it's privacy routine. Same thing like the medical industry when I was in it with HIPAA. You know, HIPAA was really created, and every industry has these privacy small prints and disclosures and all this stuff. Basically, HIPAA is created so there's less accountability for the clinics and hospitals, and the patients have less recourse. That's basically what all this is being done. So, you know, we've had this conversation before, and I've asked you, what do they do with the votes? Do they take it in the back room without video, without the people watching the count? And you said yes. And then remember I said, good luck. It's all fixed. It's all rigged. Everything. So, you know, of course I'm rooting for you, Vince, and I appreciate I'm sure everybody does appreciate your tenacity on this issue. But when the system is so fixed and so rigged and so corrupted and so manipulated at every level, that's what the hierarchy does. And that's why I mentioned some of these examples. It doesn't matter if it's a macro or micro example. Everything is fixed. The lawyers and judges are all paid off. That's America today, unfortunately. Vince?
Yeah, it is. And, Blas, I did ask to see the vote. I asked. And they brought me and my son. I insisted that my son come with me. And he's in his mid-20s. And they told us to sit down, and we could not move. I could sit against the wall, but I could not see any of the ballots. I couldn't stand up. That's the kind of thing that goes on in the back room. I'll tell you a little bit more about what goes on in the back room when we come back. Rich Scheben's with us, offgridmontana.com. If you'd like to buy his book, you can go to amazon.com, and you can buy One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana. So I have this chart in front of me. It's the Laclede Electrical Residential rate increase chart. This was sent to me by the CEO. From the years 1980 to 1985, I'm going to tell you what the rate increases were. 1980 to 1985, that's 5 years. They had 5 rate increases in 5 years. Let me tell you the percentages of these rate increases. You won't believe this. Ready? 10.1%, 5.5%, 17.2%, 6.1%, 13.1%. Those were the rate increases every year for 5 years, 1980 to 1985. Then it bumped along without any rate increases for it looks like several years. Then all of a sudden, new rate increases. Now, from the years 2003 to 2018, that's 15 years, they had 8 rate increases. 7%, 8.3%, 12.5%, 9%, 3.4%, 3.3%, 2.3%, 3.3%. Now, let me ask you this, class. How many of you have received a 10.1 or 5.5 or 17.2% rate increase in your salary? How many of you?
Or your savings.
Or your savings. Yeah. How many of you? What is happening is my grandparents, I saw their electric bills from the 1950s and the 1960s. They lived in a 3-bedroom house. They had 2 bathrooms, living room, kitchen, dining room, bedrooms on the East Coast. Their electric bill was $7 and change per month. They didn't have a $27 electricity access fee. Now, what is an electricity access fee? That's a fee to have a meter on your house. How many of you would put up with going to Walmart to get what you need? Because let's say Walmart is the only store that sells anything, okay? Because electric utility, there's no place else to go. You either go to Laclede Electric Cooperative for electricity or you generate your own, period. That's it. There's no other choice. If you live in this, we'll call it a service area. Imagine going to the only store, and let's say it's Walmart. This is just hypothetical. And they charged you $27 a month to have access to that store. Now, you don't have to buy anything there. But you're still going to pay $27 a month if you want to buy something there. Then when you go buy something there, that's on top of the $27 a month. Think about that. Now, that's what a board of directors does. A board of directors says, you know what? That's good. We should charge our customers $27 a month. We think that, that's the way to go. Now, how much is that a year? That's before you use the first watt of electricity. That's $324 a year to be able to get electricity. That's $3,240 in 10 years. That's before you use the first watt, the first drop, the first iota of electricity. That's what's going on in this country. It's an absolute outrage. Now, why is it that for some years there are no electric rate increases? How come? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For 10 years, there was a period of no electric rate increases. Then all of a sudden, there's like nonstop electric rate increases. What's happening, class, is these incremental hits to your paycheck. Taxes, 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 personal property taxes, sales taxes, license, renewals, fees, accesses, all those things. By the time you're done, there's not much left of your paycheck. If you add up all the taxes and fees that you pay, you're going to find out that you're paying between 50 and 75% in taxes, state, local, county taxes, fees, registrations, permits, add it all up, gas taxes, 50 to 75% of your earnings go to taxes. Rich Scheben, your comments when we come back. Rich Scheben's with us, and we're talking about Laclede Electric Cooperative. We're talking about a microcosm of what is wrong with the United States of America. We're talking about greed. We're talking about why is it that our electric bill keeps going up and up and up and up? And why is it that we have rate increase after rate increase? Why is it that we have to pay for an electric meter $27 per month here in our neck of the woods in Missouri? Why? And if I am chosen as the director on Friday, I'm going to insist on some changes. Now, I may not be able to get them, but I'm going to insist on a rate decrease effective Saturday morning, the day after the election. Yeah, that's what I'm going to insist on. And I'll probably be overruled, but it's going to come up, and a lot of these things are going to be brought up in the meetings. Rich Scheben, your thoughts on some of the things I've been saying?
Well, I'll tell you something, Vince. Let me give you a couple of macro examples via some articles to show you the Twilight Zone Orwellian nightmare that we're living in, and how the powers that be are doing anything at the hierarchy level, the top levels, in every macro or microclimate, if you will, in the country. For example, New York Times says lawns are symbols of racism and bad for global warming. Another article, Trump slams New York Times after leaker reveals pivot from Russiagate to racism witch hunt. What this article basically means is that New York Times, they realize that the Russiagate is no longer going to work to fool the people, because the people have woken up to it, because there's no facts that prove that. So now it's going to be racism, racism, racism. What I'm getting at here is that we have to realize that free speech is in our Bill of Rights and Constitution, okay? Free speech is a right. Privilege is something like a driver's license. And too many people are taking our free speech for granted. We had over 1 million combat soldiers die for our freedoms and liberties, guaranteed to us by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And we have to make sure we know what the difference is. So we can't, when the powers that be at any level, whether it be a small town like Vince is talking about, or a big city that tries to pretend it has their sources are credible and legitimate, which we all know they're not. They're all bought and paid for at the highest levels. We have to make sure that we have free speech. Okay, people gave their lives, lots of them, so we could stand up for free speech. We can't let the powers that be sway public opinion by holding on to the narratives and the memes and the themes. At any level, everybody has to stand up in America. The silent majority has to be no more. We have to use objective facts in lieu of subjective emotional opinion. We can't allow the powers that be to manufacture the perception. And the only way they will not do that is if we stand together. And we have to do our own reading and researching. We have to think for ourselves. If we get so lazy that we allow the powers that be to think for us, you can kiss all your freedoms goodbye. Freedom of speech, ability to protect yourself with weapons of your own choice, it doesn't matter. If they hold the narrative, they're every day, every 5 minutes from the mainstream media, it's lies, propaganda, false flags, and hoaxes. And that's the same thing at every level. And they're using an Orwellian reinterpretation of words to benefit that elite structure. They're using politically correct buzzwords and phrases to change intent, they're rewriting history. The only way this is going to stop, folks, is if we read and research. Now, in the little town that you're in, Vince, it's amazing to me, with the years you've been trying to get on this board, that the little people in your area, the 12,000 plus people on the rolls for that electric company, has not stood up and say, Vince, we want to have a meeting. We want to hear what you have to say. Instead of a 2 minute, you're allowed. I don't think you mentioned that today, Vince. You're allowed 2 minutes to speak. I mean, if the fix isn't in, I don't know what is. And I think what's happening around America is that morale is dropping dramatically. That's why the units of measures of despair, from drug use to alcoholism to obesity to suicide, all the things that we talk about all the time, is going through the roof. And the only way to combat that is to do our own reading and research and think for ourselves. We can't allow other people to drop rumors and gossip about everything and everybody, because all this information is being handed down from the powers that be to make sure we don't have synergy, to make sure we're divided by every group possible. Not just by race and skin pigmentation and gender and sexual orientation and religion. They are dividing us every way possible. And the powers that be want to steal your money. That's the bottom line. Vince?
Okay, to just describe a little hamlet where we live. I live in a town of 100 people. Actually, I live outside the town. I don't even live in town. The town has currently 2 businesses. One is an old farm supply store. When I say old, I'm talking about like an old town general store. You know, wood floors. When I say wood floors, I mean wood floors. Worn wood floors. I think there are about 4 employees that work there. One gal's in the office. Sometimes she's at the cash register. Sometimes she's at the counter. There's a guy who loads, if you buy sacks of feed or, heavy items, fencing, there's a guy that helps load that, and then there's 2 other guys. So typically there's 3 people that are working, but 4 of them are employees, so I think they have different days on and off. And then the other business in town is a post office. The post office has 100 post office boxes, 1 through 99. And maybe 100 post office boxes. Yeah, maybe it's all the way up through 100. But there are 2 parking spaces at the post office. One is for handicapped individuals, and the other is for everybody else. So there's 2 parking spaces. That is the town where I live near. I mean, a couple miles outside of town. And there's a concrete pad that, as long as I've been here, 15 years, it's been just a concrete pad. And if you ask anybody what that is, they'll say that's where the bank used to be before it blew down. There was a tornado in the 1950s and it blew down. There's one other building, actually a couple buildings, but they're vacant. There's a church that went out of business. And when I say a church, it's kind of like a mobile home or manufactured housing kind of a building. It's old, dilapidated. There's a general store that went out of business. And there was a guy that had a tire company, and they went out of business. That's it. That's the town. Then on Main Street, which is the street I'm talking about, it's a road. It's 2 lanes, one coming, one going. There are about 10 little houses. And a couple of them are vacant. That's the town. Outside of town, there's a gas station. The biggest, best building near this town is the elementary school. It's old. Looks like it's from the 60s. It's old. And that's the best building in town. By far the best building in town. Government building, of course. So the reason I'm mentioning that is not to say how poor everybody is around here. The reason I'm mentioning that is you would think in a village like that with a bunch of farmers, we'd all know each other, and I know a lot of people, and they know who I am, but no one has come up to me and said, hey, let's go get them. Let's drive these electric bills down. I had to go seek them out and say, hey, I had to convince them. I had to go find them and tell them that my plan is to reduce their electric bills, and then they signed on. Some of them said, yeah, sure, I'm with you, yeah, let's go get them. But I had to find them. They didn't find me. And you would think that in a village like this where people praise the Lord 3 times a week, formally at church, that there would be a concerted effort to make it all better for each one of us, working together. No, that does not happen. So that's where we are. You mentioned the Twilight Zone. So when someone says, yeah, this is like the Twilight Zone, what does that mean? Well, the Twilight Zone was a very popular television show. It was a show that had situations that were between reality and fantasy. And if someone tells you that someone else is in the Twilight Zone or this thing is in the Twilight Zone, that means that it's of irrationality or of a whimsical nature. It's strange. It's bizarre. It's weird. And The Twilight Zone originally was the brainchild of an Emmy Award-winning writer. His name was Rod Serling. Serling. He wrote about 80 episodes of The Twilight Zone. There were about 150 in total. And it ran from 1959 to 1964. I've seen them all. They're absolutely brilliant. Many of them are in black and white. And you can still buy the series. I suggest you consider it. Roddy McDowell, Burt Reynolds, Robert Redford, William Shatner, a whole bunch of pretty well-known actors that made the silver screen early in their careers on The Twilight Zone. Very well written, very interesting, very thought-provoking. And Rod Serling is just a brilliant, brilliant guy. So that's my response to what you said about The Twilight Zone and this little hamlet where we live. But because people will not work together, it's too hard, I guess. They're doomed. They're all doomed. And you would think that with the kind of things that we have been talking about here on USA Prepares, how to do things, you would think that I would have made a little more progress. I get beaten badly. I mean badly at these selections where the GDP come and eat hot dogs and eat popcorn and get some sodas and try to win prizes. I get beaten badly because that's what they want. And the movers and shakers, the board of directors at Laclede they know that if we give these guys hot dogs and we spend $65,000 a year on the annual carnival, which is the annual meeting of the election of the board of directors, that's what it's for. That's the purpose of it. That's the only reason to have this meeting. They've turned it into a carnival. And for $65,000, you can buy the votes of the GDP. That's what's happening. I'd love to hear your comments when we come back. Rich Stevens with us, offgridmontana.com. Rich Stevens with us, and we've been talking about microcosm of what's wrong with the United States of America today. So if you're wondering why we're talking about that, this is happening everywhere. This is happening in your town. This is happening in those township meetings, the committee meetings, the county meetings, these backroom deals, the selection of candidates for your voting pleasure, and you wonder why is it that we never get or hardly ever get candidates that we really would love to vote for? We vote for the evil of two lessers or the lesser of two evils. Why is that? So, Rich, your comments about some of the things I've said?
Well, you say about people not being able to get together, solve problems, and things like that. You know, it's the times right now. 80% of people living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people are giving up. You have big tech literally selling out America. I mean, how many articles have we read where big tech like Google and stuff has literally are helping Chinese military, not even our own people? You know, the Googles, Twitters, Microsoft, Apples, Facebooks, all social media. They've literally sold out the little people. And this is basically not against, it's not for the benefit of anything except keeping us divided so the powers that be can keep what they have and not lose anything. You know, for example, and Vince, we've talked about this often, you know, my phone calls, my emails, anything to do with commerce. I'm trying to sell 20 acres of land right now. When I put an ad in the paper, folks, people who do get to reach me, they said they thought they left a message and they really didn't. If they leave a message, I call them back. They say they didn't get it. So even if you're interested to buy 20 acres from me in Montana, good luck. You can, even if you went through my own website, you can't get to me because, and if you do, it'll be a miracle. You'll be one out of maybe 1,000 because everything is being blocked. Everything is rigged. That's the scenario that us patriots are dealing with right now. I mean, look what Donald Trump is dealing with. Can you imagine what the rest of us is dealing with? Now, I want to mention a quick quote here. In the beginning, of a change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave and hated and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot. That's a quote from Mark Twain. We are in Orwellian times. We are in 1984 times. We are in Twilight Zone times. I don't care how you label it. We're getting to the point where the theme of the week is, white supremacists or nationalists or racism or sexist misogynists or conspiracy theory or some ism-ist or phobia. You know, the powers that be have America in a designed collapse. And they're using divide to conquer. You know, we all say divide and conquer, but it's really divide to conquer this country. I mean, it's very obvious. We've given so many examples over the years, and nothing's going to change unless everybody listening and everybody that you know starts to read and research and to see how we've been used by our groups. We've been used by race and skin pigmentation and sexual orientation and religion and gender and all this stuff. We are allowing the elite to poison us against ourselves. The only way to realize what and to fix this is to speak up. Now, I was going to talk about this later, but Vince, I'm from the people I talk to in my contacts, and the few articles that make it through without being purged, at least for the first day, there's almost every government institution, and even big corporations, but mostly government institution, morale is dropping like a rock because people are tired of seeing certain people get jobs and promotions based on what protectionist group they come from. America is no longer about merit. It's no longer about qualifications. It's no longer about hard work. Folks, go into your state and local, even your DMV department, never mind the bigger state and federal buildings. No one's telling a joke. They're just walking around like zombies. No one is working hard and playing hard. And the people who are there, I know quite a few people in government work. All they think about and dream about is the day they can retire. Nobody's happy. Morale is dropping like gravity in this country because the powers that be have divided us. And they've eliminated the appreciation, the dignity, and the value of work. And when that goes, it metastasizes like a cancer throughout our culture and traditions, and that's what's happening. We'll be right back after the break, folks.
Yeah, and there's one other thing about Mark Twain. He said, politicians and diapers must be changed often, and for the same reason. He's absolutely right. And the same goes for the boards of directors of corporations. And the same goes for mayors and police chiefs. And the list goes on and on. Politicians and diapers must be changed often, and for the same reason. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of the USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us today. offgridmontana.com. And class, I'd like to read something. Every month we get a magazine in the mail. It's called Rural Missouri. And it's sent to us by the Laclede Electric Cooperative, a Touchstone Energy Cooperative. So on the front cover it says 2019 Annual Meeting Official Notice. And it says each registered member will receive a $10 credit on account. Registered members attending will receive a $10 credit on their September electric bill. And it looks like you get a free nightlight. So they are paying you to come to the annual meeting. Inside there's a full page article with a picture of the board president, Joel Cravens is his name, and Mark Rocker, he's the CEO and general manager. And there's a paragraph that says, we're pleased to announce because of the cooperative's strong financial condition, the board of directors authorized the return of nearly $2.8 million to our members this year. The checks were mailed out to the membership the first week of August and brings the total amount of patronage capital returned to members to almost $60 million since 1938. Let me tell you what I think that means. They mailed it out the first week. So what patronage capital is an overcharge on the electric bill. They charge more than they need, and they have this fund. So if they want to buy a new truck or whatever they want to spend money on, they've got the money right there. Well, every once in a while they give some of it back. Not all of it, some of it. And when do they give it back? Just before the election. Now, why would they do that? Geez, why would they do that? Hey, what a great electric cooperative. We got a check for $10.80 this year. You know, I think we should vote for these same guys, the same board that sent us this $10.80. Well, let me read something else. Now, the reason I'm reading this is just to show you how these guys work. There's a full page. This is a large magazine. Large magazine. It's way bigger than 8.5 by 11. And it shows the board nominees. And it says you can vote for one candidate per district, and there are 3 districts. So in the district I'm in, there are 3 candidates. District number 1, there's a picture of 3 people, and there's a picture of me there. Kind of a headshot of each one of us. And they took the pictures. Mr. Harris, and this is what they wrote about this guy. He is the guy running for re-election. Quote, Mr. Harris is a credentialed director with board leadership and gold certificates. He has developed a passion for serving the members the past 9 years and strives to keep Laclede Electric one of the top co-ops in the state. Mr. Harris is a former dairy farmer of 23 years and now operates a cow-calf operation. He and his wife, Winnie, a retired teacher, have been co-op members for 46 years, have 2 sons and 6 grandchildren. Mr. Harris is an active member of Morgan Baptist Church. He firmly believes in the co-op way and makes decisions that positively impact co-op members through safe, reliable, and low-cost electric service. End quote. He is running for another term. He's had 3 terms of 3 years. He's been on the board for 9 years, and he wants 12. That's Mr. Harris. The next one I'm running against, picture of Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, quote, this is what this publication says about each one of us. Quote, Mr. Stewart returned to the family farm in 1988 after working several years in the bank equipment security industry. His family helps operate their cow-calf operation in Wright County. He graduated from Hartville High School in 1976 and Graf Votech in Springfield as a certified electronic technician in 1978. He is currently lay leader at Fairview UMC. I don't know what UMC is. South of Lebanon. He is also board president and competition volunteer of Competition Volunteer Fire Department and a part-time volunteer firefighter when possible. He has supplemented off-farm income as a township grader operator, Laclede electric meter reader with 2 routes, and a heavy equipment contract mechanic for the 5th Engineers at Fort Wood. End quote. And then there's me. Now, each one of us wrote our own statement of 110 words or less. Mine is 100, it's 2 or 3 words more. Why? Because the CEO didn't like what I had to say, and he insisted that we change it and violate the rules by adding more words to mine. So mine has a couple more words. Quote, there's a picture of me. Quote, Mr. Finelli, 67, an outsider, is a most unusual candidate. He is known to despise politicians, liars, and dishonesty. Chosen by Laclede Electric Cooperative members demanding lower electric bills, he's running by petition for the 4th time. Never before has anyone done that. He's been a farmer, a 50-year mechanic, race car driver, inventor, teacher, fireman, marshal, founder of 5 corporations, father, husband, and volunteer, and a national Monday through Friday radio broadcaster competing with the biggest names in radio. Vincent is the only candidate who designed and built a residential net-metered solar electric power plant that currently provides electricity to Laclede Electric Cooperative's power supplier and members at 2.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Bachelor's degree, 1976. Master's degree, 1978. He designed Fortune 100 computer systems that lowered customers' bills. End quote. So that's the slate for District Number 1. Those are the choices. Rich Scheben, any comments?
Well, yeah. It used to be people, well, and it still is, people vote with their wallet. But you mentioned one of the descriptions from one of your competitors talking about keeping low cost to the public, or to the owners, or to the clients or customers, whatever you want to call them. But yet, you also described earlier in the show a bunch of huge rate increases every year. So it's not about representing the people. It's about hiring people to protect the status quo. And that is exactly what's going on at every level, in every industry, and especially big government and big corporate oligarchies. And that's why we're having such a very difficult time with growth in our country. And after a year comes in after revisions, we're going to be lucky, I think, even to get 2% growth. If we do, the number is going to be fudged. But I think as long as rates and prices keep going up for the people are going to be losing their farms and ranches, because when you have 80% of people living paycheck to paycheck, there's going to have to be cuts. That's just the bottom line. They can't stand when savings and salaries don't increase at the rate of the prices, the costs. That's just math that doesn't work. So, Vince, the only way you're going to win this is there's 2 things. First of all, you got to make sure that people vote because of their wallet, and you got to mention the low-cost innovations that you have of living off-grid or have the ability to reduce prices. And, I think people should also look at it as a job. Maybe you can be a mentor for a bunch of young proteges where they can literally learn the trade of putting in solar panels and cutting people's costs, and maybe even going off-grid in the first place. So I think that people need to realize what's coming, and if rate increases, it's just like taxes and insurance. Why do you think suburban, urban America, so many people are leaving certain states like the Illinois, the New Jerseys, where there's rain tax, the Californias? I mean, people cannot afford to live there. Even rent's going up in some areas of the country. And when you throw in smart meters and you throw in all the spy devices, the devices that create ill effects to your health, and all these costs that are shifting to the people, especially with the increase of delinquencies, defaults, and bankruptcies, the cost shifting is going to kill the little people. And that's exactly what's happening. And people are going to have to start thinking outside the box. They're going to have to start voting with their feet. They're going to have to move rural. They're going to have to buy some property and be self-sufficient in certain areas, and start doing things on their own, because it's going to get to the point that their properties are going to be devalued, because the next owners coming in is not going to be able to pencil in, whether it be electric costs or insurance costs or tax costs. If all these costs keep going up, it's going to be an unsustainable math problem, and the little people are going to lose. Vince?
I got an email from Dr. Norm Shealy, and there was, and this is a little bit of humor, and it says, are there too many illegal aliens, like a survey, are there too many illegal aliens in the United States? Yes, 22%. No, 17%. No comprende, 61%.
And that's why I go back to my inflation chart all the time. I realize that was tongue-in-cheek, and it was really good, but my inflation chart really, over the past 20 years, really says that the top 6 inflations is hospital services, educational textbooks, college tuition, car insurance, medical care or services, and prescription drugs. So to consolidate that, basically health care, education, and car insurance. Well, when you have illegal immigrants walking into an ER where the average Joes can't even afford to do that, I mean, we get our arm cut off, we got to throw it in a cooler full of ice and wait till Monday because we can't afford the cost shifting from the ER. Same thing with hospital stays. Same thing with college and educational textbooks and public schools. When you have so many people, in like 30 million people who don't put into the kitty, that cost shifting goes to the average Joes. Car insurance. Illegal immigrants are driving cars. Certain states give them licenses. Well, they say they can't afford car insurance. So when they get into an accident, we have to pick up the tab, and the cost shifting goes up. So it has nothing to do with what skin pigmentation you have. It's all BS. It has nothing to do with, what sexual orientation or what gender you have. The American people are frickin' going broke. 80% of Americans don't have representation, have no restitution under the law.
Don't have representation. That's exactly what this class has been about. And in the example that we've been showing you is Laclede Electric Cooperative. Do you have free medical insurance? Board of directors? Oh, no. Scheben often talks about double standards, us versus them. And today's class is a very clear example of that double standard. So, for example, if you, class, went up to one of the existing board of directors and said, I heard y'all get free medical insurance. Is that true? And the director could say, no, we don't. And you say, well, wait a minute, hold it. You really don't get free medical insurance? Nope. No, we don't. And that's true. Because they have to pay 25% of their medical insurance. The Laclede pays the rest of it. So if you were to say something like, is it true that you don't pay for all of your medical insurance? Laclede pays for 3/4 of it? Is that true? Then they'd have to, if they wanted to tell the truth, they'd have to say yes. So what I'm saying is, there's an illusion, and the people lie with words. They lie with misrepresentation. They lie with omission. They get 75% of their medical insurance paid by the cooperative. Now, how many people would say, well, do you have accidental insurance, or business travel insurance, or life insurance, or death insurance? Do you get that? Most people wouldn't ask that. But these directors, and they're not the only ones, corporate directors get a great bundle of benefits, like 24-hour accident insurance, business travel insurance, life insurance, dental insurance, completely paid for by the corporation. Do you get that? Do you make $166 an hour working 3 hours a month and get a free lunch? Well, the president of the board does. How about $133 an hour and work 3 hours and get a free lunch and get your travel to the board meeting of 3 hours paid for, reimbursed? Do you get that? Do you get free lunch when you go to work? Do you get your transportation paid for by the corporation when you go to work? If you work at Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, do they pay you a reimbursement for your travel? I don't think so. So Rich is absolutely positively right. For all these years, he's been saying there's two groups. The bottom 93%, we pay it all. We pay it all. And our electric bills are higher because we have to pay for medical insurance, and all the other insurances. Dental insurance. Do you have dental insurance, class? I don't. I don't have dental insurance. No one in my family does. I don't think we ever have. And yet these guys do. And they don't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you the perks and benefits. They don't want you to know that everybody gets a bonus at the end of the year for working at Laclede Electric Cooperative. They don't want you to know that. That's the money that's been overcharged by the cooperative. I think it's nice to reward people who do a good job, but not everybody does a good job. In the General Electric management philosophy, they fire 10% of the employees every year, the bottom 10%. They look at all the performance reviews, and whoever is the bottom 10%, they all get fired. Because they're the bottom 10%. That's the way they look at it. So, in the case of Laclede Electric Cooperative, even the bottom 10% would get a bonus. Well, why? Because they've been there. They survived the whole year. This is what's wrong with America. We should reward performance, not what group you're in. Not what group you're in. If you can't perform, then you need to find something else to do. Now, I think we should help the little people, the handicapped, the ones who, through no fault of their own, are having a tough time. I think we should help people who need a hand up, not a handout. Any comments, Rich?
Well, that's one of the reasons I think we need laws of excess, because they're hiring people who are willing to follow along with the gaslighting, the lies, propaganda, and the hoaxes. It's all PR. It's all manufactured perception. It's not. Nothing is done anymore for the benefit of the people. The people have to pay for everything.
We have to pay for everything. And it's got to stop. And it can stop in a small way on Friday night. Just a little bit more humor from Dr. Norman Shealy. He sent me an email, and there's an image of a sign, a Chinese restaurant on a post, and it's the traditional yellow background, green and red letters, and it says in red, Chinese restaurant. It has some Chinese lettering in it, and then above it, the name of the Chinese restaurant, and that's spelled Waitudum. I guess that's pronounced way too dumb. And on the billboard of this restaurant, it says Ocasio-Cortez. Name in Chinese is W-U-N, next word D-U-M, next word ho. And I think that's pronounced one dumb ho. So, and then there's another one for Cortez, sometimes called AOC. There's a picture of her, and she's looking pretty serious. And it says, sometimes I use big words I don't fully understand in an effort to make myself sound more photosynthesis. That's humor from our medical expert, Surgeon of the Year, Dr. Norman Shealy. Another one, young girl's kind of pouting. Her mother is saying, to her, this would be a millennial child, if you don't stop lying, you'll grow up to be a reporter for CNN. So that's it for the humor from Dr. Norman Shealy. Tongue-in-cheek, of course, but it's indicative of the way a lot of us are thinking.
Well, Vince, on that note, I know we were going to talk about this, and as usual, we deviate and never have the time to discuss all the things we were talking about about the show the day previous. But I want to mention some of these. You're going to think it's tongue-in-cheek. You're going to think these articles are made up. You're going to think that a Twilight Zone writer actually made up some of these articles. I'm just going to mention a handful, if that's okay, and put the bulk to the side because we're not going to have enough time for it. But let me just mention a few of these articles. And you judge, listeners at home, to see if we are living in an Orwellian Twilight Zone nightmare. Okay, Bernie First article, Bernie pledges to reveal UFO alien secrets if he wins. Okay, so I'm not saying that it isn't important. I'm just saying that how about using policies? How about using facts? How about helping the people? All the Democrat Party does is try to put down Trump and patriots and does nothing for the American people.
Hold on one second about that. So Bernie Sanders is going to tell us the truth about UFOs and aliens. Okay, well, let me tell you that can't happen. And I'll tell you why it can't happen. Because William Jefferson Blythe Clinton, upon taking office, after swearing an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, wanted to find out about UFOs and aliens. And he was told, your security clearance isn't high enough. We're not going to tell you. So Bernie Sanders can make that claim, but he's not going to learn either because his security clearance isn't high enough.
That doesn't surprise me. Everything is rigged. Everything is propaganda lies. We'll never get the truth for anything. Okay, next article. Twitter philanthropists. I love when these gazillionaires are calling themselves philanthropists. Basically what they do is they take their money to gaslight the American people so they can keep what they have. That's what that is. Anyway, Twitter philanthropist pledges $100,000 to clean up Baltimore if Baltimore Sun retracts the article criticizing the conservative who ran cleanup effort in Baltimore. Not making this up. Next article. Drag queen teaches small children to sexually tweak during story hour. Next article. Australian libraries promote transgender teen book that describes 6-year-olds enjoying oral sex. I know you think I'm making this up, folks. These are articles that are published in the public domain, I promise you. All these articles are no more than a week or two old. Next article, student found guilty of rape for cajoling female with flattery. Next article, de Blasio forces passengers to wait on a plane so he can appear on The View. Next article, Dayton killer was on cocaine, alcohol, and antidepressants. So instead of getting rid of the guns, or trying to get rid of the guns, and blaming the gun or blaming the car that runs over people, we don't want to blame the cocaine or the alcohol or the psychotropic drugs. This is Orwellian. Next article, you're going to love this. Son pushes BMW birthday present into the river because he wanted a Jaguar. I know it sounds like I'm making this up, but it's not. Next article, Rosanna Arquette. I think she's an actress. I'm not sure. I'm sorry I was born white and privileged. It disgusts me. Unbelievable. See, this is why the themes and memes of the week is white supremacist, nationalist, racist, sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theorist. It's designed collapse to divide and to conquer the American people. Next article. Washington Post embarrassed over gaffe-filled story needing 15 corrections. 15 in one story. Here's a great article. Dad sued for slander because he criticized the education system. This is what parents are supposed to do. See, this is how they're trying to make the people be submissive, break their will. You have to pay for the school, but yet you can't say anything about the educational system. That is beyond Orwellian, beyond USSR, beyond the Alinsky Marxist Cloward and Piven and Frankfurt School. That's where we're heading, folks. So the silent majority better not just wake up, but read, research, and speak up. This is kind of a little funny one here. Facial recognition mistook several California lawmakers for criminals. That's probably pretty accurate. Okay, next article. Lawsuit alleges CNN's Don Lemon forced a man to smell his genitals at the Hamptons bar. Let me read that again. CNN's Don Lemon.
I don't think you have to read.
I mean,
I think you have to read that
the
again.
The reason why I said that, Vince, is because if this happened to a Republican, if this happened to a white male, this happened to somebody who has a Christian name, this happened to a heterosexual, are you kidding me? This guy would be taken out back and hung. He'd be in prison. But if you're a Jesse Smollett or a Don Lemon or anybody, you can basically do whatever you want because you have a certain type of protectionist group status. Next article. Inmate with HIV squirts tube of excrement and urine in a guard's mouth and walks free from court. Now, I have a lot more of these articles I could talk about, like Hong Kong's. Here's a great example of what's happening worldwide. Hong Kong's richest man lectures the protesters to love China. Now, I realized 20 years ago, approximately 7 million people, or how many are in Hong Kong, lost their freedoms. And it's very sad indeed. And I commend what they're doing. I wish the UK would have created something when that contract was up of over 100 years of freedom. I wish they would have created something to give the people a choice. But why this article is so important is because Hong Kong's richest man will always be rich. Doesn't matter what happens. He'll always be rich. So he's jumping in the fray, putting his 2 cents in to help the tyranny by China to control the little people who want freedom and liberty. So that's an example of what's happening today, and I have an article right next to it. Americans are more in debt than ever. Another article, New York Times lawns are symbol of racism. I think I mentioned that, and bad for global warming. I mean, we're getting to the point, folks, where we're literally in Stupidville. That's what's happening. And not enough people are speaking up about this. And if we don't speak up, our liberties, our freedoms, everything that we cherish, and the million combat soldiers plus who gave their life for our freedoms, it will be all for naught. Vince?
Did you say something like a young person, a teenager, pushed a gift BMW into the river because he wanted a Jaguar?
Yes. Here it is right here. Son pushes BMW. I am not making this up, folks. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Son pushes a BMW birthday present into the river because he wanted a Jaguar. And that's such a great example of what's happening in America with today's youth, where they expect everything to be given to them for free and they don't want to earn it, and they have no appreciation of it because of it. And if you look at a lot of the people who are angry in America, folks, it's a lot of people who get inheritances of big money. Those are the people who are putting less into the kitty and are more spoiled because of the silver spoon. These are the people who realize that if the little people gets rights, gets restitution under the rule of law, and some type of protection under the rule of law, it's a threat to the wealthy people. That's why, and most of these so-called liberals, believe it or not, are white. And that's why they're trying to divide us by skin pigmentation, shade, gender, sexual orientation, etc. Because they don't want to lose their addiction to power, money, and control of what they have. Can you imagine that, Vince? Can you imagine if one of your sons, you gave him a brand new BMW and he pushed it into the river because he was so spoiled that he was expecting a Jaguar? Can you believe? I can't imagine how livid you would be if that happened in your family.
Well, you'd see it from Montana. I can tell you, first of all, it would never happen for many, many reasons. Our children have to earn their way. Okay, literally, they have to earn their way, and they've all learned to work at a very, very young age. And I'm talking like, doing chores around the house starting at maybe 4. But I do have a comment about the BMW and the Jaguar, and I'll just share that when we come back. It's a really quick comment, but it just goes to show how stupid these millennials can be. Without too much work, they can be really dumb. We'll be right back. So this young son, gets a new BMW, a German car, and pushes it in the river because he wanted a Jaguar. Jaguar used to be an English-owned car company. Ford bought it in around 2000. And then sold it because they couldn't handle it. Jaguar is not known for reliability. It never was. And since it's been sold a couple times, the reliability is even worse. And there was a guy on Craigslist, and I called him. He was selling a Jaguar, a nice, relatively new Jaguar, for $700. He couldn't wait to get rid of it. Why? Because the throttle cable broke, and he couldn't get one. I want you to think about that. A throttle cable broke on let's say a 10-year-old Jag. He wants just a few $100s for it because he can't get the part that connects the accelerator to the linkage under the hood. A throttle cable. Maybe a $20 part, maybe a $30 part, maybe something that you could fabricate yourself with a piece of aircraft cable. Thin aircraft cable. And this guy knows so little that he wants one. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a child that is so greedy, so insensitive, so me first, that he would push the vehicle in the river? A gift? Sometimes we receive gifts that we really don't want. But what do? I mean, do you insult the person who worked hard to earn the money to buy you that gift? Do you throw it in the trash? Of course not. Of course not. Because it represents thought and kindness and interest and some amount of effort to pick the gift. And if that ever, I can't imagine it ever happening. I really can't. But if it did, I would be so hurt that relationship with my son would be over right then and there. Period. Over. But what's happening, Rich Scheben, you're describing young people today. Too many of them, not all of them, but too many of them.
Well, you know what, Vince? Sometimes it's the parents' fault, too. I see so many parents today succumbing to social media and powers that be. And a lot of the cases, just like that one example, where the parent is getting sued for chastising the educational system. I mean, I've read articles where parents, they're young kids who know nothing. They want to change their gender because they've been sexualized in school and through the mainstream media. And the parents say no, and the parents get sued or get fined or go to prison. So I see parents losing their ability to control their children and to be parents. So they're taking the easy way out. Instead of fighting the system, they want to be friends. That just enables the kids to have a worse life, because parents are supposed to teach discipline and tough love to their children. And because of the political correct scenario where the powers that be are doing everything in their power to basically destroy our way of life. They want to literally collapse our whole traditions, our system, our culture. And I mean, just like I read last week, how the FISA declassification has to happen because literally one administration, the Obama administration, illegally spied on American citizens, Republican Party, Donald Trump, and they corrupted our intelligence agencies, the FBI, CIA, DOJ, to literally create sedition, treason, and espionage against the rule of law and the American people. And this will go down as the biggest government scandal in our Constitution and civil liberties in the history of our nation. So the reason why I say this is if morale is so far down, especially in the intelligence agencies, all government institutions, even big corporate oligarchies, when morale is down because there's no common sense, there's no rule of law, there's no proven results or qualifications, people are getting a job and promotions based on what group you're in. So everything is upside down. Everything is chaos. Everything is made for division.
Here's one quick comment. We're almost out of time. You're absolutely right. And when one of our children was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in a public training camp, and that's as far as any of them ever made it, would be 6th grade, they were told in class by the elementary school teacher, if you hear mommy and daddy fighting, you call 911. If you hear an argument in your house, you call 911. If you ever feel unsafe, you call 911. And when that happens, the police show up, and mommy and daddy lose their right to bear arms. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us. Never call 911. Never call 911.